Broncos fans, before we get into today's video, I want you to respond to this comment down below while the intro video rolls. Will Vic Fangio be the Broncos head coach in 2022? Give me a Y for yes or N for no. Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson, and today we're going to talk about possible Vic Fangio replacements. If the Broncos and GM George Paton want to go a different direction after this season, well, we might as well be ahead of it, right? Let's be some Boy Scouts, let's be prepared, and let's get some names floating out as possible replacements. I got them from 6 to 1. We're going to go a bit of a countdown order, starting with number 6, and that is Lane Kiffin. I put him on here just to amuse myself a little bit. But the Ole Miss head coach who has had a fun, storied career. I got a pro and a con, two pros and a con. I got a compliment sandwich. Pro number 1, you could draft quarterback Matt Corral and you bring Lane Kiffin too, and maybe it's a nice complementary duo because the Broncos, I think, are definitely going to have a different quarterback under center than what's currently on the roster today. Con, didn't quite work out well for him last time he was in the NFL. If you don't remember, he was with the Oakland Raiders in 07 and 08. Al Davis loved him as a possible young, upcoming coach. Saw the same thing he saw in John Madden and Gruden. Didn't go to plan at all. 5-15, and they opted to move on from him pretty quickly. And then my last pro was, He's funny on Twitter. I mean, I like following him on Twitter. He's kind of leaned into all the self-deprecating jokes about him, so a little bit of a fun guy. So, yeah, Lane Kiffin is number 6 for me right there. I don't think it's going to happen, and there's no chance whatsoever. But it's always fun to toss Lane in if you can find a way to do it. Number 5, maybe people get mad at me for this one, but Eric Bienemy. So he's a bit of a tough topic to nail down as a Broncos legitimate coach because he's been with the Chiefs since 2013. He's not off to a great start, we'll say, this year. This Chiefs offense looks like it's been figured out a little bit. Now, Eric Bienemy is not the play caller for Kansas City. That's Andy Reid, and that kind of goes for and against Bienemy, but overall I think it's more of a negative than a positive this season. Because if you're going to hire an offensive-minded guy, you want someone who has experience play calling if he's going to be the head coach, in my opinion. But another pro for him is he was a very popular candidate last offseason. And honestly, it's a little bizarre that he didn't get a head coaching job after what he did with Kansas City last year. But overall, what I want to know is, would the Chiefs allow Bienemy to interview with the Broncos? Remember that teams can grant interviews while the season's still going on, and decent chances that the Chiefs will be in playoff contention in January. So maybe the Chiefs don't allow Bienemy to talk to their rivals in the Denver Broncos. And I don't know if the Broncos want to bring on a Chiefs guy. That kind of hatred lives more with the fans and the front offices, but it is a real thing across the league. Also, Broncos fans, if you have not already, go ahead and subscribe right now if you are a true Broncos fans. I've seen a lot of Broncos fans quit on this season already. When the going gets tough, stick around. We're knocking on the door of 4,400 subscribers. Be the one that pushes us over that milestone. And when the Broncos get good again, because let's face it, they're not right now. They haven't been since Manning retired. But when they are good again, because they're going to get back to that point, you can say you've been with them since day one through the tough, the bad, and the rainy. But you are here for the sunshine when the Broncos return to that Super Bowl status franchise we know them as. My 4th replacement for Vic Fangio. How about Dan Quinn? He looked like he was down and out after getting canned in Atlanta despite going to a Super Bowl in just his 2nd season. But very quickly his impact has been felt in Dallas. He turned what was an awful defense last year around immediately. A secondary that people wanted, the Cowboys fans wanted Dallas to draft Patrick Surtain to help fix it. Instead, they go with Micah Parsons, and Quinn has Trayvon Diggs looking like an all-pro corner, maybe even a defensive MVP. So when you do that and you have that kind of impact immediately, your name's going to get tossed back in there. Con for Dan Quinn, he went 14-23 in his last 2.5 seasons as the Falcons head coach. Whatever happened in that Super Bowl haunted Atlanta. It haunted the Falcons. They simply were not able to get past it. And frankly, personally, I don't think they'll ever get past it until every single player on the roster and coach is removed from that 2016 absolute blunder of a Super Bowl. But what I want to know from you guys, though, is are you more in the offensive-minded or defensive-minded camp? Head on down to the comment section. I'm going to make this the pinned comment, and if you get hit with the YouTube ad break, scroll on down, find that pinned comment. It's right at the top. Give me an O for defense, O for offense, or a D for defense for the next Broncos head coach. Moving on, now we get down to the top 3. How about Greg Roman from the Baltimore Ravens? He's had a storied past, honestly. A lot of things working out for good old Greg in Baltimore. He was the offensive coordinator in San Francisco when that Kaepernick offense was there, which we're not going to get into that whole, bag of things, but that offense was fantastic. It was fun to watch, especially at its prime. That was the interesting thing, though. At its prime, it declined when defenses kind of figured it out pretty easily, and that's kind of been a criticism for Roman and why he hasn't been able to get a head coaching gig, in my opinion, along with Lamar Jackson. Con for me, though, he's never been a coordinator that's been truly able to work out a passing game, okay? In all of his time as an offensive coordinator, you check out the stats here with the number one passing yards per game, 268.1, and that's this season in Baltimore. Besides that, last year the Ravens, they had the worst yards per game through the air. That's a big knock right there. Now, this Ravens offense is still very good. They make it work. They adapt to what works for them. But I do think it is a bit of a con. It's a bit of a knock if you can't find a way to do a passing and a run game. And if you're a little bit one-dimensional, coordinators can kind of figure that out. Pro for me, though, he's very offensive-minded. He has a ton of experience. He's bounced around the league from San Francisco to Buffalo to Baltimore. He's had a variety of coaching stints, so he's got that experience. He's got that pedigree, at least in my opinion. So that's why Greg Roman clocks in at number 3 for me. Before we get to number 2 and number 1, I want to tell you about our friends over at BetUS. Our sportsbook partner today hooks you up with the 125% deposit bonus, and all you need to do is go to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code Broncos125, and boom, you are in the green right there. Check out our Week 9 odds as the Broncos head on down to Dallas and take on Jerry's Cowboys. Dallas opens up a 10-point favorites, over-under at 49.5. I know this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I'm leaning towards Cowboys minus 10. Dallas won on the road on Sunday Night Football last week with a backup quarterback. They are 7-1. Meanwhile, the Broncos offense just has simply no identity yet. If you want to make some money, bet something else, but I kind of like the Cowboys in this one. Don't shoot the messenger. Now, moving on to number 2, Kellen Moore. Speaking of Dallas, maybe it's going to be a trip where the Broncos come back with more than one person they came down with on their team plane. Maybe they kidnap Kellen Moore and bring him back to Denver because he is the hottest topic right now in terms of the next head coach. He is what looks to be like the next Sean McVay. Pro, he's young and he's offensive-minded. Con, he's young. It's kind of like when Michael Scott was talking about, remember that scene in The Office where he's like, the thing about Jim is pro, he works really hard. Con, he's not a very hard worker. So the young aspect kind of works for and against you. He's only 33 years old. If you remember when Sean McVay was hired, he was 30 or 31. So he would not be the youngest hire in NFL history. But the biggest pro is everyone is in love with this guy. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if it's cologne or something, but everyone wants him in their building because since he's taken over as the Cowboys offensive coordinator, he's posted 2 number 1 offenses in total yards per game. 2019, his first season, quickly ascends to number 1. 2020, 14th, but if you remember, that was with Andy Dalton and Ben DiNucci as a quarterback for a bulk of the season, and he still finished 14th, which I think is pretty impressive. And this year, he's picking up where he left off with Dak back in 2019, first after 8 weeks this season. So that's why I got Kellen Moore as my number 2, but this is not a list of things that I would want to happen. This is a list of things I think the Broncos would do. And that's why I think there's one person that I think would beat out Kellen Moore. Maybe the Broncos want to go with a little bit more of an experienced fella. Before I give you that name, though, I want you to answer this question for me. Do you want Kellen Moore as the next head coach? Type 1 for yes or 2 for no. Let me know if you are in on the Moore camp or if you're out. Me, I got jotted down. He kind of gives me a little bit of Josh McDaniels vibes. Everyone's in on this guy. I think it might be a bit premature He's only 33. Let's pump the brakes a little bit, but from college to pro, everyone seems to want Kellen Moore as their next coach. I mean, the Cowboys might even fire a 7-1 Mike McCarthy to ensure that Kellen Moore does not leave the building. That's been talked around here in Dallas. Now time for my number one. It is Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. I got him as number one of a likelihood of where the Broncos may go. Two pros. First one, he's a great fit with rookie quarterbacks. Look what he did with Josh Allen. Josh Allen looked maybe like a broken quarterback, a bit of a first-round bust. And then Daboll quickly changes it and turns it around, and now Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. A con for me, though, would he be a good fit with a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? The Broncos may go after a veteran this offseason, may put up the biggest trade in NFL history and get one of those elite quarterbacks. I don't know if the coach you want to hire to accompany a veteran quarterback like that is someone like Daboll? Or do you want someone more along the lines of can keep the ship afloat and has some head coaching experience? To me, Daboll seems like the kind of guy where if he gets his first head coaching gig, he's going to want to do it his way and start the way he's done it before. He's not going to be a babysitter or just more along the lines of, a Robin to Aaron Rodgers' Batman. Pro, he's got experience with Belichick and Saban, and I think legally we are bound to note that anytime a coach is in consideration for anything. He went to the Saban rehab, turned it around as an offensive coordinator there, and Belichick, at least he has that defensive aspect of things. Everyone's in on offensive guys, but football's a three-legged game, right? You have offense, defense, and special teams. Don't count special teams out. Harbaugh and Baltimore will tell you that. So that's what I got going right there. Let's run through my 6 one more time. At number 6, I have Lane Kiffin for shits and giggles, honestly. Number 5 is Eric Bienemy. I don't know if the Chiefs would let one of their guys in their camp talk to the Broncos as a possible head coaching opportunity. Remember, teams have to allow that phone call to happen while the season's going on, including in the postseason. Number 4 is Dan Quinn for simply what he's done in Dallas, and this defense has been magnificent. Number 3, Greg Roman out of Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, that offense looks a lot of fun. I'm sure Broncos fans would love to see something like that in Denver. Then number 2, the hottest name right now in all of coaching hot boards, Kellen Moore. And finally, number 1, Brian Daboll, the Bills offensive coordinator who's absolutely in line for a head coaching gig after this season. The only question is, where is he going to go? So to wrap up the show, I want to ask you guys this final question. What's your favorite pick from the list I gave you / did I miss anyone? Let me know what you're thinking. Sound off in the comment section if I missed someone or if you agree with one of these guys. Again, this is my prediction of likelihood for the Broncos, not necessarily what I think I would do if I was GM George Paton, but you can be GM George Paton down below.